A Twin Cities nonprofit is under federal investigation. Feeding Our Future is suspected of stealing tens of millions of tax dollars meant for child nutrition programs. As John Croman reports, that money was allegedly used to buy big-ticket luxury items like cars and real estate.
Federal agents raided this office building in St. Anthony and a dozen other locations Thursday. At the center of the investigation, a nonprofit, Feeding Our Future, which funnels federal child nutrition money from the USDA to community agencies. In a search warrant application, FBI agent Travis Wilmer said financial records show a massive fraud scheme involving the misuse and theft of tens of millions of dollars in federal child nutrition program funds by Feeding Our Future and associated shell companies. Money spent to buy houses, office buildings, vehicles, even trips to Caesar's Palace.
Many times those are document intensive.
Former FBI agent Jeff Vaness said fraud cases involve intense mining of electronic bank records.
There is a review of documents to kind of follow the money, so to speak. And a lot of times those money flows will sort of speak for themselves.
According to the search warrant, Feeding Our Future said thousands of meals were served to children at this office building in South Minneapolis, but the FBI found little evidence of that. The FBI said the Safari Restaurant and Event Center claimed to feed 2 meals a day to 5,000 children. But the warrant said the nutrition dollars actually flowed to shell companies for personal use. The Minnesota Department of Education became suspicious in 2020 because the amount of money flowing through Feeding Our Future had gone from $3 million in 2019 to $42 million in 2020. So the Department of Ed eventually cut off funding to the nonprofit, and then the nonprofit sued them. And last year, a Ramsey County judge ruled that the Department of Ed had to start the flow of money again. And then it went up to $197 million. In Minneapolis, John Croman, KARE 11 News.
We reached out to the executive director of Feeding Our Future today, but she has not returned our calls or emails. We aren't naming the suspects until formal charges are filed.
New information in the fraud investigation into an organization claiming to feed hungry children. The FBI alleges the St. Anthony-based Feeding Our Future took tens of millions of dollars in federal child nutrition money and funneled it to people who spent lavishly. As Caroline Cummings reports, the investigation is already spilling over to the state capitol.
These documents reveal what investigators are calling a large-scale scheme to defraud the USDA of millions of federal dollars intended for child nutrition programs. Search warrants allege the nonprofit Feeding Our Future distributed funds to companies that said they were providing free meals to needy kids, but instead used it to purchase real estate, cars, and other luxury items. Almost none of this money was used to feed children, the documents say. The FBI says it began investigating Feeding Our Future last May after the Minnesota Department of Education, which is responsible for oversight at the federal child nutrition programs, expressed concern about the massive increase in funds for Feeding Our Future sites. The nonprofit took over $300,000 in federal funds in 2018, according to court documents, but that ballooned to just shy of $200 million in 2021 alone. According to the court documents, usually these child federal nutrition programs function through educational-based programs or activities, but during the pandemic, the USDA waived some standard requirements. That left the program, quote, vulnerable to fraud and abuse, the documents say. Political reaction was swift, with Republicans in the legislature calling for a full audit of COVID-related funds and spending. House Minority Leader Kurt Dowd in a statement said, quote, this is just the tip of the iceberg for fraud in federal COVID programs.
We came to the office for Feeding Our Future and knocked on the door. A man answered saying he was a consultant for the business and that they had no comment at this time, but would be releasing a statement soon. In St. Anthony, Caroline Cummings, WCCO 4 News.